one thing of arguments, of discussion, because each and every village should have their own tribal harvest festival to thank for the creator, the deity, for their harvest. And each and every tribe or each and every CHOU or village has different time and different way to worship. But in the last, say, 30, 40 years, they started to have this so-called joint harvest festival, 联合丰年祭. And it's not a religious practice any longer, but rather like a carnival that everybody or each and every village have one program, one dance to present during this festival. Became a kind of competition, and therefore some of the people, tribesmen, they don't like the idea. But for the leaders of the tribes, they believe that to celebrate jointly is a way to demonstrate their power or their existence to the government, to force the government to pay attention to their needs or demands. So this practice of the so-called joint harvest festival is still of a discussion, of hectic discussion. But nevertheless, the tribesmen nowadays, they kind of respect this kind of activity, and an order by the educational ministry said that students who wish to go back to the hometown to take part in this festival should be granted holidays without hesitation, without reservation. Like this is actually a must for to show show our respect to the original culture. And these two pictures were actually of great discussion. We don't know exactly the nature of these pictures. It was actually written or painted by Chinese in the 19th century, and it says the king of the barbarians on your right hand side, and this is the woman of the barbarians on your left hand side. Certainly, you can see, you can notice the naked top. But as for the nature, we don't really know, because the barbarian, the word fan, is actually connected with the Chinese, with the Aborigines, as well as with the Westerner. Whether this were actually the Westerner or the Aborigines, we don't exactly know. But it's actually the picture of 19th century. So just put it there. This is the CHOU tribe. The CHOU tribe is mainly located in Nantou country, as well as in the Nantou county, the country, as well as WHEI county. The tribe is a very small one, with an estimated population of 6,000 nowadays. And there's actually a chieftain called Tomu as a leader of this CHOU tribe, and they don't have really, they don't have any sound. They don't have any kind of activity to make themselves known to the world. Right? This is the Bunong in 1900s. Bunong tribe is found mainly in Nantou area, comprised of 6 main groups. Well, the thing about the groups is actually now where the discussion starts, because some of the group would claim themselves being an independent tribe sometimes, and sometimes they only consider as a CHOU, as a village, as a group. So it depends on the attitude of the chieftains or of the tribesmen. So the Bunong is a very small tribe, roughly 51,000 people. They are related to the Micronesian races, and the picture was actually taken in 1900 by Japanese police officers, as you can see here. And please notice that their head dress, the turban, which is somewhat different to the other tribes here in Taiwan. So this is again the Bunong tribe. As you can see, the left one is actually, you can see from the front side, and the right one is you can see from the hind side. This is the Bunong tribe. That's one of the new tribes, or newly independent, became independent tribe. Toroko tribe in Hualien used to be considered as the army tribe, right? And it was the idea of a sub-tribe of the armies. Only recently they recognized the tribe, and the present population around 25,000. And this their cottage in the Fan Mu in the Muguaxi, actually have you been to Hualien? Right, not far away from the Shanzhanxi is Muguaxi, actually south of the Hualien city, the mountainous area. That is Muguaxi, where they live. And little villages, sometimes the tribal name will be renamed. Like you have the Guangfu Xiang. It's a Chinese name. They used to have their own tribal name, but nowadays people only remember the Chinese name. Okay, this is the CHOU tribe, located mainly in the Riyuetan area in Nantong County. The current population is very small, 200 people. Right. They were actually very close to the CHOU tribe, believed to be related to each other. However, they are linguistically very different, to which that indicates that they are actually not so related. But the intermarriage between them, and nowadays I don't think they are all still able to communicate with their mother tongue. And the CHOU tribes, they are now actually living on the tourism, taking pictures with the tourists, selling things to the tourists, and sometimes they just collecting the taxes from the local, because there was actually the reservations, and people have to rent land from them. And I think they are living a very quite comfortable life. There's another tribe called Alishan tribe. These pictures were also taken during the Japanese colonial time, and just notice because they live in the mountainous area, they have to use both hands to balance their bodies, and therefore they always carry things with their head. Like it's the string and the bag behind themselves. This is how they carry, and most of the cases barefoot. Taiwan tribe is located mainly in the Kaohsiung and Pingtung area. The population is roughly 87,000. The tribe was actually involved with the Mudanshe incident, if you should remember. In 1869, some of the Liu-Qiu fishermen arrived to Taiwan, driven by typhoon, and 59 of them, some of them were actually killed by the Mudanshe tribe men. I mean, Mudanshe is actually one of the Taiwan tribe. So therefore Japan sent troops to Taiwan in 1874. That's the Mudanshe incident. So they are actually society with different social classes, comprising mainly of 4 social classes: chieftains, noblemen, warriors, and commoners. I remember a student of mine, actually from Pingtung area. She was a princess. We always call her princess. Very interesting, because of the. But the number is still big. Therefore, the social classes still mean something. A lot of great singers are actually from this area. So some of them, they have the facial tattoos. As I mentioned, that this facial tattoo is only practiced by some tribes, not by every tribe. And so the facial tattoo also reveals the origins. Like in some, say in the Indo-China areas, the facial tattoo actually practiced. So this might be an indication of the origins. And the Attaya people, for example, Attaya actually spread it between Taipei to Yilan. And some of them actually stretched to Zhanghua area. They have a very special facial tattoos, which symbolized the manhood or adulthood, because they have to, say, hunt successfully a boar, or they have to be able to kind of finish some certain fabricates, some cloth, and then they will be allowed to have tattoos on their face. Actually, the face is actually an order. Just like you see the Sadeki, they make a facial tattoo here and on their forehead, meaning that they were actually brave men. Not everyone will be able to wear this kind of tattoo, as you can see this one. This is the Attaya tribe. The dispersion of the Attaya tribe is very, very huge, which stretches very far away. As far as those from Wulai. Have you been to Wulai? Yeah. So this is the Attaya tribe. And then if you go to Nantou, to Hualien, you can still find the Attaya tribe. Yilan area, for example, all from the Attaya tribe. Student of mine teaches in a junior high school in Yilan, in Su'ao. This is actually the Aboriginal area. She told me that the people there, the young ones, they hardly go to school, though it is obligatory, but they hardly go to school. They got married very, very young, at the age of 12, 13. They are already bearing child. The literacy there is really pretty low. And though the government tries a lot of method to keep them in the school, but similarly in bed, for them it will be easier to live the traditional life, hunting and so on. But well, there's a lot of problem with the Aborigines. We'll talk about later. So you can see that the Aborigine women in weaving, so they are working. Most of the textiles are actually made by themselves, using materials collected in this neighborhood. Rukai is another tribe with the different social classes, kind of patriotical feudal society. So this you can see in the picture. This is a chieftain, leader of this tribe, and they are actually in the southern part of Taiwan. The population nowadays will be roughly 10,000. And This is pronounced as Dao, not Tao, Dao. Actually, they used to be called Yami. Nowadays, they call themselves Dao, and located in the offshore Orchid Island. And they started as fisher, of course. They live mainly on the taro, on the sweet potatoes, or on the fish. They caught during the fish time, the tide. And they are actually separated from most of the tribes of mainland Taiwan, on the island Taiwan. They are considered as part of the Bataan tribe in the Philippines. They make this little boat and setting out to hunt for the very small flying fish and just dry them up. They have warriors, but I don't think they have any kind of enemies but themselves. They used to have these kind of very short strips, the tanga-like underwear. That's all their costume. And what's interesting, for a time, the authority forbade them to wear the traditional costume, forced them to have pants on. And whenever they pass by the police station, they have pants on as long as they pass by, and they just took it off. And they don't want to be disturbed by the Chinese. And the government also built some houses for them. Right? We're using cement, using the modern materials. They hated it. And most of these houses were actually abandoned, ruined, lying there helplessly. And they still used to live in their own village. But because of the Orchid Island is a very famous sightseeing spot, I think the culture was also influenced by the Chinese again, or by the tourists. Right? A lot of the people now live on the tourism also. There's their warriors. You see, there's a little tanga type of costume, traditional costume, and the warriors are very respected, highly respected. Or just I don't know that who are they fighting. So the another thing will be the modern outfit nowadays. This is actually an imitation or actually an adoption of the Chinese idea, like dressed in this kind of colorful costume, red and so on. It's not real because it's against the natural rule. How can you kind of hunting with this costume on without being noticed by even the stupidest animal? But the Chinese like it this way, something red instead of black or white. So the modern Chinese Aboriginal or modern Aboriginal outfits is strongly affected by the Chinese. And for a long time, those army tribe, they waited there in the rest station of the freeway or highway, to waiting for the tourists to come down to take pictures with them. They charge. Take a picture, just $10 NT for one snapshot, so they can get rich. But now no one wants to do this any longer, right? So now we'll be talking about the WHEI incident. What is the WHEI incident about? This is the WHEI in Nantou. The film which I just showed was actually all about this incident. You see the little village here, this is already not original, this is already against their nature. They used to live in, well, when I mentioned that they lived in Hualien, in Taidong, in Pingdong, in Nantou area, because it was actually the central mountains. And they used to live in these areas. The land is vast and kind of separate from each other, isolated from each other. And by doing so, they are not affected by modern disease or by the modern culture. But again, then it's impossible for the authority, or whether Qing authority or Japanese authority or Taiwan, nowadays the Chinese authority, to gain control over them. So therefore, for a long time, the Japanese authority tried to isolate them in these areas, building some fence so that to keep them in the fence, so that they won't disturb the normal life of the rest of Taiwan. So before 1950, there was actually the Japanese method to rule over the Aborigines. So after the 1920, when the world situation became calmer, the First World War was over, Japanese is actually the dominant power in East Asia, and they gained some more confidence. And therefore, they wanted to rule over the Aborigines by, first of all, asking them to come down to the lower area, and they forced them to stop or to build a new settlement in this area, the WHEI area, which is lower, which is reachable by the Japanese roads, or can be controlled by the Japanese police officers. But nevertheless, some of them actually still stayed in the higher mountain areas. So, but you can see the new settlement appeared, and they even introduced school system there. And the WHEI incident happened in 1930. Was actually took place in a national schools, right? Where you can see a lot of school children were actually assembled to be taught there, and a lot of Japanese officers who were actually running a timber factory there also. There's just hold together a new settlement for the Japanese, and they also want that the Sedeki people to come down, to live with them, to work for them, and to mingle with them. So nowadays you can see this is the Lushan Hot Spring here. It is how it looks like today, right? With this hot spring and this the sightseeing spot, a lot of hotels, a lot of restaurants, tea houses, and so on. It wasn't like this earlier, but this area is actually very dangerous, because as soon as typhoon came, they will wipe things out, right? Because they were actually built in those areas which is not supposed to be building sites. So the WHEI incident of 1930 was one of the main conflicts between Aboriginals and the Japanese. The Japanese policy towards Taiwanese natives caused the rising. Well, we'll call it rising, it will be easier. In order to gain control over the Aboriginals, the Japanese government forced them to resettle to lower land. Then, after contact with the Japanese, disease ran rampant, and thousands of the Aborigines died. The contagious disease was also very, very dangerous to any, well, the people who were actually foreign to the surroundings. So like Japanese winter, yes?
Do they know which disease?
It can be of different disease, like even flu can be very dangerous, right? and pneumonia and cholera, whatever. So the Japanese also forbade the Aborigines to perform their own tribal rites and forced them to do hard labor because of they use this timber factory. You know, the Taiwanese, one of the most famous Taiwanese timber was actually the inoki in Japanese. Used to build the temples, the shrine, used to build houses in Japan. So they would actually falling the trees, bring it down to the harbor to ship to Japan. They get a lot of money, but the only possibility to transport them down was by men, by labor, and the originals were actually forced to do so. So the exploitation by Japanese police officers caused hostility, provoked the Aboriginals into a rising. And this is this, well, Sedik, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Saideke, Taiwanese Aboriginal tribe located primarily in Nantou County, in Hualien County. This is actually the coinage in Taiwan issued in memory of the Mona. That's the chieftain who started this Wushe incident. Have you seen this coinage? $20 NT? No. The circulation is very small. Have you seen the 20 NT coin? No. Yeah, usually you see 10 and 50, right? But there was a time that it was 20 NT.
After on Wikipedia, I heard Mona's face was on this, and I looked for this coin, but couldn't find it. Yeah.
You couldn't find it?
Yeah.
Well,
I was hanging.
perhaps you can try to go to the shops. They do coinage and stamps. Right? You might be able to find them there. So, now talking about the Mona Rudao. In the early hours of the morning of October 27, 1930, Chief Mona Rudao assembled 1,200 tribal men and attacked the participants of a Japanese festival held in the primary school. So 134 Japanese and also 2 Taiwanese, because they were dressed in kimono, so they were mistaken as Japanese. They were also killed. So altogether 136 people killed. And 250 more people were actually injured because there was the festival. And that's why the Mona Rudao chose this time, the best time. There's a lot of Japanese there to start the attack. So they raided police outposts, postal stations, and other colonial offices. They acquired firearms, ammunition, and the rising started. So that was actually the Wushe incident of that time, in 1930. There was the little school, so-called common school, or the primary school in 1930. This was actually the scene of the place. So when the slaughter were actually finished, a lot of people killed, injured, and so on. This is the scene. When Japanese sent troops to this area, they only found dead bodies and so on. Everything is destroyed. And that's the warriors of the Aborigines who had the possibility, who has the technique to use the modern rifles. So they attacked the police office to get to acquire the firearms. So that's why you saw in the film, right? So knowing this, Japanese started their retaliation. Police as well as military forces, right? They started they deployed a modern military arsenal and used the rival tribes of the Attaya tribes to root out the rival Attaya. They use tear gas, they use airplane, they even use the other modern weaponry to try to force the Monarida and his followers to give in, to surrender. There was no answer, and therefore they started using poison gas, mustard seed gas, and so on. So they, on December 1st, 1930, Chief Lu Dao committed suicide, and the uprising continued for another 3 weeks, and then altogether the Wusa incident lasted only 50 days. So you can see that actually the taken in the scene, Japanese army used their grenades, used their cannons, and sorry, I think the tribal name written wrong, not Taya, but Sedeki, right? So 700 killed, 50 and all committed suicide, 500 surrounded. So that's the film, first of all, made on this topic called the red sakura in the wind, 风中飞鹰, Dana Sakura. And by the way, you know that nowadays the Aborigines, they still speak fluent Japanese, right? Because they adapted their language very quickly. And so after the incident was pacified, the Japanese colonial officers started to inspect. So this is the picture they took after or during. Nowadays, the Wusa is renamed as Ren'ai Xiang, the Ren'ai County or Ren'ai Township. The houses, you can see that it's really modern, but you can hardly see any leftover of the Wusa incident there. Okay, I show some films later about the Wusa incident again, but I would like to talk about the Aborigines today. According to the latest statistics, there are actually 520,000 Aborigines in Taiwan. You have about the same amount of male and female, 50-50, right? But the number is actually provided by the Council of Aboriginal Affairs. Actually, this is the official figure. And the status of being an Aborigine is based on the Indigenous People Basic Law. It's actually a law. Therefore, I have to say that the definition is not precise. Like the Council or the Committee of Aboriginal Affairs, they won't count the Pingpu, the people, as the Aborigines. Right? And for those who don't want to let people know that they were actually Aborigines, they were also not counted. Somehow there are people that they don't want to be known as Pingpu, like in Hakka. This is another issue. A lot of Hakka people, they don't want to be known as Hakka. This is okay, and I would rather be called Minnan. And some of them didn't even know that they were actually originally Hakka. They always thought they were actually Minnan. For example, in Zhanghua area, there was actually clearly there was actually the mixed settlement. Some of them from Minnan, some of them from Canton. Therefore, you have the Hakka as well as the Minnan. Like in Huwei town, the people there, they should be actually they should be Hakkas. But nowadays they only speak Minnan. they forgot their origins. Sometimes you have to ask them to ask their great-grandfather, the grandfather, and then they'll fakely say, "Oh yes, I remember." Right. But as I mentioned, you can judge them just by their family name. Some of the family names just give way, right? Like a lot of people who call, family name is Meng, right? Or Fan. These are all typical the Hakka family names. Whenever you see Fan or Peng, you say, "Are you Hakka?" Right. And they are actually. Even they deny it. Well, if you want to deny it, deny it. Just as therefore, it's very hard to define what you are, and the reason we have to define it because only in this case that some of the special welfare will be provided, some of the privileges. For example, when the Aborigines they join the examination for the universities, they get I think it used to be a quarter, 25% bonus. And nowadays the bonus is still very high. And some of them can enjoy the scholarship and so on. And for some certain areas that they will only hire the people from the Aborigines. Right. As I mentioned, the definition is very hard because the intermarriages started very early. In the 17th century, was actually started this first wave of intermarriage between the Dutch and the local Aborigines. That we still have some folklore in Taiwan telling about a girl, a blonde girl, standing in the harbor area to wait for her father. Her father was actually a Dutch doctor serving on the ship, on the Dutch fleet. So how can we have a blonde girl in Taiwan, right? And in Pingtung area, you can see there is actually still a little temple worshipping a little princess who was actually in Western look, and they call it Xiyang Gongzhu, the Western princess. We don't know where is actually the origin of this little temple, but in Pingtung still we have the little temple there. I think it's the relic of the Dutch activity in this area. So anyway, during the Dutch area, the period that the intermarriage started already. And when Taiwan was taken over by Koxinga, so the large army came to Ireland. Most of the soldiers and staff were actually young, single. So Koxinga encouraged the intermarriage, just try to get more people here in Taiwan to be open, to be able to open up the lands for or to open up to serve in the army. Therefore, lots of Aborigines married into Han society. Some Aborigines married willingly, while the others were forced. So don't forget that once the girls married Han Chinese, then there won't be enough girls for the local people, for the local community. Well, basically, we have, or if not affected by any kind of, say, traditional ideas or the culture, the birth rate should be, the sexual rate should be 103 to 100. So it should be 100 women and 103 boys. That's the natural balanced way of sexual rate. So in this case, let's take that the Aboriginal society, they follow this rule. Say, if 20% of the girls married into a Han Chinese society, then there will be 20% of the girls short. So the population of the Aborigines was actually strongly affected by this fact. During the Qing time, the same thing happened also. The Qing dynasty gained control over Taiwan, right? The immigrants arriving from mainland China were not allowed to take their families with them. So they settled down in Taiwan. They still have to find some woman to get married. And therefore, for a long time, the Taiwanese would ask a very high present as the gift or the dowry. So therefore the Taiwanese, the poor Taiwanese or poor immigrants, they could never afford to marry a Han Chinese. Well, in this case, the another possibility would be marry the Aborigines. And therefore, this kind of intermarriage will never stop. Right? But the authority noticed this fact, and therefore, for a certain time, the officers or the authorities forbade the intermarriage. There was actually a public order that the Aborigines should never be married into the Han society, so that the population would not be affected. But this kind of political order, the administrative order, was actually always neglected. Even nowadays, a lot of the orders can be also neglected. Right? So the Japanese colonial time, that's what we saw, that this trend continued into Japan's colonial era. The Japanese survey, well, this is more reliable because we have the statistic. Right, the Japanese survey showed that 27% of the people women married Han Chinese during 1905 and 1908. During the same period, 18% of the people men married Han Chinese women. So this kind of intermarriage was very common. And the Japanese authority also encouraged police officers to marry the daughters or sisters of the chieftains. In order to gain control over the Aboriginal societies, this plan was not very successful because, as you see, that the WHEI incident started in 1930, because only after the 1920s the Japanese started this new policy towards the Aborigines. But it was never very successful. And after 1937, when the war broke out, these policies or all these measurements, they decided was not in use because they have to face another political situation, the new political situation. So the Japanese authority would not pacify or suppress the tribes, and then the war broke out. Therefore, so the Japanese intermarriage policy was not very successful. But when KMT came to Taiwan, the Republican China came to Taiwan, so the same story happened. A large army followed, and the situation was very similar during the Koxinga area. Statistics show that 26% of entire tribe in Hualien area, 26% of their women married to soldiers from mainland China between 1960 and 1978. Partly because of two reasons. First of all, the soldiers could afford to pay a handsome present for their bride's parents. And the film I'm going to show you later is about these facts. Right? And also, to marry a Han Chinese means that you are living settled down. The life is more stable. Not like the Aborigines. Sometimes they live a very easy way. The man only drink. Today, the head story of the United Daily is about a woman who was actually found as enslaved in the States. Right? It is said that her parents sold her to a family at the age of when she was 7 years old. And well, the story is still unknown because it's only the beginning of the story reported by CNN. But probably from a Aboriginal family, right? The father is drinking, the mother will have to look after the whole family. They have 10 children between 2 husbands. And therefore the mother was kind of unable to look after each and every one of them. So gradually she would have to give 1 or 2 away for adoption. That was actually the story, but it was actually very true happened quite frequently. So then for the Aboriginal women, they might be thinking that to marry a Han Chinese would be easier. First of all, you don't have any social connections. Most of the Han Chinese arriving in Taiwan after 1949 was actually single, without families. And therefore you don't have these kind of obligations, or the relatives, or all these kind of social networks, which was actually very important. So a lot of the Taiwanese girls would prefer to marry to a so-called white Chinese because of this reason, right? And between 1960 and 1978, because the government started to open up roads in this area, so they sent the old soldiers, old soldiers is a modern term because they were young then, right? So they had contact with the people there, and therefore this kind of intermarriage sometimes is not only because of the money, sometimes because they have this kind of intensive interaction between themselves. And now another phase started. The government gave up the idea of reconquering China. So the maintenance of a large army was not necessary. A lot of soldiers were actually discharged, released from the army, from the troops. So then they were actually allowed to get married. Before they were actually still in the military camp, they were not supposed to get married, right? So when they were released, they wanted to settle down, but then should be at the age of 50. So how can they get married? Who actually marry a 50 years old man like myself? So the only possibility would be purchase, right? So they pay some money, get a young little girl, settle down, and a lot of tragedy happened. So the film I'm going to show you is about on this topic. So the purchasing a bride was actually common practice. So therefore the intermarriage became more and more frequent. That's one of the reasons. And again, when the Taiwanese economy started to take off in the 1970s, then factories were actually established, say in Taipei area. Nowadays, have you been to Shantou area, Xinzhuang, Banqiao, or Shulin? They were all new factories. So these factories attracted people from all over Taiwan, and also the girls from the Aboriginal areas. They also came to the cosmopolitan areas to work in the factory. Their life is much more stable and more convenient. Or in their own hometown, they have to work. Like the parents have 10 children, the younger one will be looked after by the elder sisters or siblings, and still they live a very hard life. By going to factories, they will be able to send some money home. It will be easier, and therefore, a lot of Aborigines were actually attracted into the factories. But when the people were actually relocated, the social structure began to change. First of all, they have to get married, but more than likely not their own tribal man. And most of the cases actually with the Han Chinese, or with Aborigines from different tribes. These kind of things also happen. So bit by bit, the situation changed. So nowadays we have only 500,000 of the Aborigines counted as Aborigines. That's one of the reasons. But as for how many were there, if you counted people, then the story will be somewhat different. We'll take a few minutes off, then we